We are joined now by Shell Millington, our Director of Behavioral Health, and Brittany with Whitetail. She is the Director of the facility there, and Jeremy, our Assistant Director of JSU. So welcome. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to the table. So we want to talk a little bit about the new Level E facility that we have, Whitetail. It is our substance abuse facility, and just really how that facility became a facility for us, and what makes that facility different for our young people as opposed to just our regular Level E facilities. So I'm going to kick it to you, Jeremy, first.
Well, I can just talk about how youth they make their way toward to get into Whitetail. First of all, they got to be in OJ custody. And from there, they send the worksheet to the placement unit. And at that time, we make a determination by what's in the worksheet, the information, what kind of substance abuse that they've been abusing, such as fentanyl, marijuana, alcohol, those types of substances. And at that point, if the placement unit makes a determination that they meet the criteria to go there, then we send that the assessment over to Brenda, and she does an assessment evaluation, and if they meet her guidelines of it, then they will go to Whitetail.
Okay, and we're going to bring Brenda on in a little bit and visit more with her on what those assessments look like. Right. So, and then they go on the waiting list, obviously, just like any regular one of our youths.
Right. And
they work their way through. And then whenever they get into the facility, Brittany, whenever they come to you all, then tell us what daily life looks like in the facility.
So daily life is, they'll come to us and, we kind of give them 3 days to kind of get acclimated with the program, learn our expectations, the rules, things like that. Because we have a lot of rules to provide some structure and stability for the youth. So it may be more than what they're used to, right. Probably. Right. So we give them 3 days, and, we just kind of work with them in a group setting to, be able to utilize coping skills, not be very agitated with having so many people along with them. We teach them daily skills. We monitor them on, little things, hygiene, cleanliness, chores.
And what about education? Do they go to school on campus, or do they go to school in a regular school setting?
So they do go to school on campus. Our school is through Norman Public School, so okay. They have an actual teacher. It's kind of like the Dimensions program. However, everything is on campus, so they come to the facility and provide them with education or testing and things like that.
And what about summertime now? Do you still go through the Norman Public School, or is it kind of like a summer school? They do work, but it's not through Norman School.
So in the summer they do work, and it's not through Norman Public School. We have been looking to hire a actual summer school teacher. Hadn't had any luck yet, but they do study hour. We call it study hour. So they do whatever it is that they were working on. We still have, that type of work for them at that level. So they still will do work from 8 a.m. until 12 p.m. So it's kind of like summer school.
Okay. And then we're going to bring Wesley on here in a little bit also to talk about the difference in the therapy that they get as opposed to our regular Level E's.
Right.
But talk a little bit about the phase system that you have and that they work through to be able to level up in the program, to be able to get passes and what that looks like.
Right. So like I said, when they first get there, they are on novice, which is the first kind of safety phase. We're getting to know them, they're getting to know us. And then once their 72 hours is up on novice, and then they will do a level test to phase to trainee. and which is our base level training. Everybody's on training. You know, you're still working on things that you need to continue to work on. We don't have much expectation out of them on training because, again, you know, that's the base level.
Right.
So they are on training for about 3 weeks. And then each time they are ready, or they feel that they are ready to level up, then they will ask for a level advance request. So it's kind of like a maybe an application, you know. So we're trying to continue to teach teach life skills. So they put in a level advance request, and then they'll tell us why they feel like they should move to the next level. What have they done well? What do they still need to work on? And things like that. And how would they feel moving to the next level would benefit them. So then we bring the level advance request to treatment team, which we have those on a weekly basis every Monday. And we talk about the client, you know, how they did, how their progress was that week, and, you know, things that they need to work on, troubles they had, things like that. And then we review their level advance request. Then if we all agree, they move up. If we don't agree and we feel like, you know, they should still work at that same level on some of the things that really matters on the next level that we would really look into, then, you know, we give them our feedback of, you know, no, you didn't get your level today. However, you know, these are things that we feel like you need to work on, and let's revisit this. Now they can apply every week after they are eligible to level up.
Gotcha. So there's no time limit that they have to wait after that. Every week they're eligible moving forward. That's great. Yeah.
So then, say they move up from trainee, then we have apprentice.
Okay.
Our apprentice is our first level up, and they are granted more privileges, more phone time, more options. They can choose, you know, what chore they would like to do. They can go on outings and get into the community, you know, because we want to provide them, we want to introduce them back into the community as well. Right. I mean, as smoothly as we could.
Right.
So then they get to go on the outings, and we try to do an outing once a week, you know, and it could be something simple, a nature walk, the park, the movie theaters, the zoo, things like that. Right. And, you know, and we want them to be able to maintain their behaviors, the appropriate behaviors on the outings as they would do inside the facility. Then if they succeed, they have to be on apprentice for about 4 weeks. After 4 weeks, they can request a level advance request, put it in again, same process as they move up to the level. Then we have journeymen. On journeymen, they are, again, allowed more privileges, more weekly allowance, longer telephone times, staff passes. We have a mentor program inside our facility. So we, on a monthly basis, we pair each staff with a different youth just so that they can build rapport, get to know things. I feel that each staff may have something to offer the youth. Right.
So it's not the same staff member with the same youth the whole time they're there. You rotate that around. Right. That's great.
Sometimes if a youth struggle with a staff, I kind of pair them, have them spend more time together just to kind of have some kind of understanding of, hey, what's going on here,
Well, and they may have different backgrounds, or they may have, different ideas of way things that should be. But if they get to know each other on a more personal level, they may be able to understand each other a little better.
Yes, and I feel that it has had a lot of success. We've had youth who just really couldn't mesh with a certain staff. And now they're like, hey, can I go on a staff pass with such and such? I really want to go to the gym or hang out with them. So it's been a good thing.
Good.
So they go on journeyman, and, then they're allowed a 6-hour pass inside the community, with guardian or something like that. And then they'll stay on that level for about 5 weeks. So each level, a week is added for them to maintain all the appropriate behaviors, for them to, have cleanliness, do their chores, communicate positively, not engage in negative behavior, not be on refocus, which is our consequence system,
Right.
and things like that. And then they just kind of hold themselves accountable, still talk about what they've done well, what they still need to work on, things like that. After journeyman, we have craftsmen. And then craftsmen, they're eligible for a 24-hour pass by the time that they should meet craftsmen. And then they, again, have more dollars for their allowance, more phone time, longer showers. They just, each level gives them more incentives to maintain and do what they're supposed to do. By the time they get to craftsmen, they have like a movie night for some of the higher levels. We give level lunches, so on a weekly basis, they come together.
Because food's a big deal for them.
Food's a big deal.
we hear about food all the time, right, Jeremy?
If you want to motivate some young boys, some young men,
give them food.
Yes. So then they're eligible for their level lunch. So they get together and really talk about, hey, what do y'all want to have today? Again, so it's not just what I want. It's, hey, we're a group. What do we want? Right. And, so on a weekly basis, we order them food out, or sometimes we plan, hey, the outing this week we'll go to Chili's, because again, we want them to still maintain appropriate behaviors while they're in the community.
Right.
Go somewhere and sit down, have a nice meal, have some good manners, things like that. So they've been to Chili's and things like that. And after Craftsman, it's Master Craftsman. So then they'll be on Master Craftsman for about 8 weeks, roughly. By this time, majority of their time has already passed, and they're coming up to either their 5-month mark or they're preparing to discharge if, they're really excelling. And that's excelling in programmatics, that's excelling in, on the therapeutic behalf of the program. And then in the community, you're going on outings, you're going on passes, and you're coming back, and you're still excelling. You're still doing what you're supposed to do.
Right. So you talked about the time of 7 or 5 months, and we've always typically heard the 7 months is about as long as a kid stays in our lovely group homes. And Shell, we know that as an agency, we have learned more is not always better. But I know some of our courts don't always agree with us on that. Talk a little bit about why our agency is leaning more towards that and how we've learned that.
I think the biggest probably dose of feedback we got was several years ago going through a Georgetown length of stay academy and looking at outcomes related to out-of-home placement. When you have the 5 to 7 month spot, you can really capitalize on progression. When you keep extending it, young people have the ability to begin regressing. As Brittany's talking about, a lot of the things they're working towards and maintaining. You don't want to plateau and then have them wait too long. That can build frustration and then worse outcomes. You also see in literature, the more you have people out of their homes, the less you're developing in just a standard development way. So your emotional and your behavioral development is really impacted in a congregate care setting. So truly outcomes can become worse the more time that we're putting young people in artificial environments.
Yeah, and that's definitely not what we are looking for with our kids. And I know there's that myth out there, that, especially with our substance use kids, that they need long-term care to be able to be successful in re-entering the community and staying clean. But that is definitely a myth.
Yeah, when you look at, and I don't want to take Leslie's or Prinda's place in this conversation, you want to be able to maintain a good chunk of sobriety. And so that's something that Whitetail is able to offer. The crux of substance use treatment is when you're back in the communities, back in your environment where you have the temptations, where you have the situations where your coping skills used to be to use. And so I've heard in some discussions with Brittany and some of her colleagues, connecting young people at Whitetail to NA meetings and the exposure to what it needs to look like when they go back in their communities. But the good amount of time and the good treatment they're getting at Whitetail is a huge step up to be able to maintain when they go back into the community.
remind me whenever we have Wesley or Brenda at the table. We want to continue that part of the conversation. But Brittany, is there anything else about your facility that you want us as JSU to know before we turn this over and start talking more therapeutic?
No, we just, again, we really try to have the youth involved in their treatment. We really try to have, them have a say-so in what's going on. We ask them to advocate for themselves. We ask them to hold themselves accountable, things like that, just so that they feel, we're not judging their faith, or we're not trying to plan their future for them, because a lot of youth that we have been on their own per se, or, they feel like they're an adult already because of their background or whatever that may be. So, we just try to make sure that they're heard.
Right. Yeah. Which is huge for our kids, because for a long part of their life, they have felt like adults have made the decisions for them.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and coming to speak to us about your program.
No problem.
I appreciate hearing about Whitetail, and this is definitely a program that our kids have needed to be able to go to.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Welcome back. We are now joined by Wesley, the therapist, LPC candidate from Whitetail, and Dottie, ADS in Garvin, Murray, and 57,000 other
Just
Pontotoc.
Yeah, Garvin, Murray,
Pontotoc County. So we are joined by them at the table. And so welcome, Wesley. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
And Shell has hung around. So Shell, thanks.
Yeah.
Being awful quiet over there today. So we had a great conversation with Brittany about Whitetail and the program just in general. And she kind of talked to us a little bit about, Jeremy kind of talked to us a little bit about the steps of placement and how a kid is referred to the program. And then Brittany explained really the program, the programmatic side of it, and the levels and daily living of the program. But we really like to talk to you, Wesley, about the difference in the therapy that the young men get there at Whitetail, really compared to our other levelees, because this is labeled as our substance abuse treatment center for our young men. And what does that look like? Because to be honest, we've had other programs that we as JSU workers have been told was our substance abuse treatment centers. And so we would like to know.
Okay. Yeah. So, brand new program, right? And it is tagged the Substance Abuse Treatment Center, right? And the therapy is basically all the services that they receive there is substance abuse related. The only thing that really isn't for sure that is individual therapy, which can deal with any issues that they might be dealing with.
Right, because we know our young men aren't just dealing with substance use, right?
Right. And a lot of them don't even think they have a substance abuse problem, right?
Right. Because why is it a problem?
Right.
Yeah.
And so like group therapy, we're using the matrix model, which is like a booklet that I have that goes over group therapy, family therapy, and individual therapy. And there's different sessions. And so basically just started kind of at the beginning and do one per session. And yeah.
So this matrix, he looked at you. So I'm going to assume this is something that you all agreed on, or you found, or
So when we were having discussions about standing up a substance use specific group home, we had some good conversations with DMH. And we wanted to think about what's going to be the best curriculum to then equip Whitetail to be able to use. And Matrix is a model that's specific to the population we're trying to target. So we were able to purchase that curriculum and give it to Whitetail so that they have no issues with the resources related to the target of the focus of this program. DMH is also going to be offering training in that model. And I think in the coming months, I keep bothering them. But it's exciting to be able to have something that you're not just kind of thinking this is really good. Like you have some guidance on this is truly a treatment targeted for these young people. We also have been able to give some of the resources to Kojak as well, but the focus has been to make sure that Whitetail has what they need for substance use treatment.
That's great. That's really good stuff.
So each session is basically spelled out, like this takes this long as part of the session, this takes this long, discussion takes, 40 minutes. And it's really hard to get the guys to stick to a script like that, right? It's not going to work.
Right.
So what I usually do is I get some other resources that are related to the subject or the topic for that session, right? So that I'm able to continue on as opposed to just like, okay, let's talk, you know? So I want to keep them busy and engaged and, for discussion purposes.
And is that done in a group setting? I'm going to assume is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever a new youth comes in, do they have to wait until that group is finished, or can they fit in that group setting at any time?
Basically, you can come in and start at any point.
That's great.
Right.
Yeah.
Basically, like at the beginning of each group, have the guys introduce themselves, talk about like what led them to getting placed at Whitetail, what their drug of choice was, just to kind of get the guys familiar with each other, right? And to be, relatable to one another, right? So you can really start anywhere.
And then is Whitetail also like doing the 1 hour session to 2 hours of groups or whatever? I mean, are they still held to that same standard as our regular group homes?
Yeah, correct. 2 hours of group a week, and then one individual session, and then one family therapy session, a minimum a month, right?
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you're familiar. So again, I'm going to plug the hub, which is shameless of me, but I'm going to do it anyway. So OJA has the hub, and it is Clay Cody should be in your facility. And Clay is a workforce development specialist that works with me. And so if you have family that is struggling to be able to get to your facility, to be able to do family therapy, we can assist that family member in getting there, like with a gas card or other resources to be able to help them. So if you are having struggles with family, we would love to be able to assist with that.
Oh, that would be awesome.
So Clay Cody is your man to be able to reach out to, to be able to help with that.
I was actually explaining the hub a little bit to him.
Oh, good.
We were waiting for our turn, talking about some of the great new things that OJ has going between it and
FFT. So shamelessly plug that. But we just don't want our families to miss out because we know that that's a huge part of reentry.
Oh, for sure.
And so we want to be able to help families because that's been a huge barrier for them.
Yeah, I mean, we're able to do it virtually,
but virtual
it doesn't
it's not
work.
the same.
It doesn't work quite as well.
Or except, whenever a kid earns a pass, but then they can't go on a pass because their family can't afford to get there. So, yeah.
Awesome.
So is this Matrix model a new model or is it new to OJA, our group homes model? How long has it been around?
I would have to, it's a good question. I'd have to look to see when it was published. It's new to OJA. It's something that DMH introduced us to. And so we've been using different curriculums beforehand. And as Allison mentioned earlier, in some of the more original substance use programs that were level E based, it was not a model that was used. So it's new to us and new to Whitetail.
So earlier we were talking about the length of stay, and we have traditionally been told that our youth with substance use needed to stay long term in placement to be able to be successful in reentering back into the community and staying sober, and that is a myth. And we talked about our length of stays and OJA's philosophy on that being sometimes longer can do more damage than a shorter amount of time. And so we would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, I can see how that could be impact negatively, right? Because they're out of the environment so long.
Yes.
That they come back in, and then there's a lot of fear probably getting back into the community or back into the environment they came from. The important thing, I believe, is getting the guys to believe that they're capable of something different and getting them to believe in themselves, right? And that's one of my major focuses, is to just get them to buy into, like, hey, the way I was doing it before wasn't working. Look where it got me. Maybe I need to just give it a shot, and that's where I start. It's a little nugget, and I can build from that.
And then whenever they are getting ready to re-enter back into the community, what are some of the things that you and that youth work on to get them prepared, and what are they setting up back in the community?
Well, like learning healthy coping skills is one of the biggest things, and that's like really driven home, from the beginning to when they leave, right? So like I contacted some Alcoholics Anonymous group, right? And they come in weekly. And so I provide them with that because it's really important to develop a new social group, right? Because part of it is changing your people, places, and things. And I really drive that home. And, OJA, I was told, really kind of wants it to be associated in a roundabout way, like with the 12-step programs, right? Because they work. So I really want them to get introduced to that and buying into changing the people, places, and things. So when they're going back into the community, what we're doing is recommending like continuing individual therapy, whether that be FFT, hopefully, and then getting involved in maybe continued outpatient substance abuse programs, right? Because just something to continue it, right? To have that transition from being in placement to being back in the home environment, right? And I think addressing the family dynamic is a really important part of that, right?
Right. Yeah. So is there anything else that you feel like we as JSU workers, because this is kind of my follow-up question, I'm an old school JSU worker, I was in the field for a long time. Is there anything that you feel like we coming into your facility with our kids need to know about, or that you want us to know before we get there?
So I think the biggest difference between this program and other programs is we want them to have a little bit more freedom, right? Like we want them to be able to go out into the community with outings and then passes and be able to make the right choice. Like I think that's the biggest thing, because anybody can stay sober locked up.
Right.
Right. We want them to want to be sober and make that choice.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.